just don't know if that city's ready to handle that type of event. And I'm just kind of like, why did we pick that as the shining light of the United States, where maybe I'm not trying to dump on LA or anything, but I wouldn't live there.
I have a sneaky suspicion that Skid Row is going to be immaculate by July of 2028, some way, somehow. I just have a feeling about that. Women come in all shapes and sizes. They come in all colors, from the darkest of the dark to the lightest of the light, to, really dark eyes to blue eyes. And so, to each his own. I think I'm assuming because of the look of our wives, you and I have different taste in women, right? And so, so to put people in this classification is a problem.
Anyone tells you, I don't care if somebody says to you, we're going to kill you, we're going to kill your mom and dad, we're going to kill your family. Tell them, come bring it on. Because we're not afraid of anybody. I don't care who you are. I tell my kids, don't ever be afraid of anybody. My wife tells them, has beaten it into them. Don't anyone ever bully you. We're not afraid of nobody. I don't care if you accidentally screwed up and you sent a naked picture of yourself to someone, say, go ahead, send it out there. Please make sure you get in touch with my parents' lawyers so that we can get royalties to it.
Both of my sons had to come back home from college during COVID. And so we had some really extensive conversations around this idea of social media. And there was a Netflix special that was on. And so we watched that, and it talked about just how the algorithms are formulated in a way that gets us addicted to the next thing, to keep us on, to keep our attention there. Because what we put on social media, that's only a fraction of the sliver of the top of the iceberg of who we really are.
You said 62%, right? Between the ages of, 1 to 18, 62%?
1 to 18.
Is ultra. That's more than half their diet is ultra processed.
Yeah.
And it has this stuff in it. I think it's leading these kids to the emergency room. I think it's leading these kids to the oncologist. I think it's leading these kids to have depression and high suicide rates, and ultimately infertility and all these different adverse effects. If you invest in good food, you don't then have to invest in hospital bills 10, 20, 30 years from now.
We're putting our population in a position where now you've got the pharmaceutical companies and the physicians that have a nice little relationship, because now they're just managing sickness. You're not managing care, they're managing sickness, and we eat ourselves to death. Apple even decided to do it to transition all of their manufacturing over to America. And again, that iPhone and those Apple products would increase by 30 to 60%, depending upon the cost for labor.
We have a company like Apple who's currently on the ropes, right? I mean, Apple is on the ropes right now. They totally blew it with AI in the rollout of AI. They have no strong AI presence. They're getting killed by OpenAI. They're getting killed by Anthropic. They're getting killed by Meta. They're getting killed by Google. They're getting killed by everybody. Sure. Everybody's killing them, right? Mm-hmm. And they ought to be ahead of the game. Apple is always late to a show, right? They're always late to a market or emerging market. They're going to watch and they're going to see what's going to happen.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most. This is the podcast about preparing for what matters before it becomes urgent. We dive into the realities of aging, the complexities of family dynamics, the ins and outs of financial planning, and the big decisions that will shape your future. Because when the unexpected happens, a strong plan is the difference between protection and regret. In today's episode, we are joined by two experts in the field of family-focused financial planning. First, Dr. Len Cooper, founder of Beacon on the Hill, whose advocacy and programs have empowered countless families to navigate the challenges of elder care with confidence. And Chris Philp, a seasoned financial strategist with over 15 years of experience guiding families on how to safeguard their assets, manage care costs, and preserve their legacy. Together, Len and Chris will walk us through practical strategies for supporting aging parents without jeopardizing your own financial future, and explain why so many people wait far too long to start planning.
All right, congratulations. Never mind. Go ahead, Len. We're so excited to get out of the gates. Welcome back. Go ahead, Len. You said it before me. Go ahead.
All right. So, hey, I want to welcome all of you to the Family Office Files. Chris and I are very excited for another episode. We have a lot to talk to you about today. And we're just two guys who've had entrepreneurial experience and differing political views. And so we just want to share with you some of our thoughts about different topics. Today, we're going to be talking about the LA Olympics. We're going to be talking about the whole thing going on with Sydney Sweeney. And we're going to talk about some health issues as well, and also current events. And that's kind of an overarching theme about what we do. And so with that, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So Chris, first of all, how are you, man? How's everything? How's the family?
Everything's great. Just got my kids back from California. They're getting ready to start school this week on the 13th. That's going to be the first day. So everything is discombobulated right now, as I'm sure you know. Yeah,
especially coming all the way from California. Now they're back, and now you've got to get them off to school. And you don't just have one kid, two kids. You have a lot. So
yes, a lot 4 different schools this year. 5 different schools if you count college. So it's pretty exciting right now.
It's a lot of organizing, man. So, hey, hats off to you, man, because I know you have to have some systems and operations in place in the Philp household.
Well, interestingly enough, I usually, for the last few years, I've had one of my executive directors or assistants, so to speak, doing that kind of stuff. So much so that it went to all the school communications went to an operations email, and they stepped away from that role this year. So I kind of just like, I'm gonna go. I was very confident. I was like, I'm gonna take this on, and I dove into it, and I was just like, it took me literally 2 weeks. It took me from the middle of July to literally, I'm not even kidding you, this morning. Literally this morning, I was up this morning going to a school meeting, and it wasn't until 4 o'clock today, but it was really, the email said it was 8 o'clock today. It was interesting, but literally I have a lot of respect for anybody that deals with that because it's a lot of work. Even with the technology, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. Especially for you and your family, so.
Yes. And just a word of advice to anybody who wears contacts. I've been wearing contacts since I was 8 years old, but I happen to sleep in my contacts, which I've done before, but I happened to do it for the first time in 4 or 5 years. And I gave myself a corneal edema in this left eye. So I had to, and I don't wear glasses because I'm stubborn and I just won't do it. And as a result, I couldn't wear my contacts for a few days. And it was just absolute, don't sleep with your contacts in. I just, for anybody out there who thinks they could do it, you're going to run that risk. It was so odd. It was like I was looking through smoke. That was a couple of days ago and throughout the weekend. So now hopefully, things are moving in the right direction. Outside of that, it's been pretty exciting. Things are moving in the right direction, and I'm just excited for the school year and excited to wrap up the year and see how things end up. How about for you, Len? Anything exciting? Anything going on for you?
We just finished training, well, me specifically, to become a certified assisting in place specialist. And so I'm really excited about that because I learned so much about working with different people, for example, like construction workers and occupational therapists and different people in the medical field, because as people begin to age in place, they want to have specific ways to arrange their house. And sometimes that requires a complete overhaul. And sometimes that means just adding a grab bar or a non-slip mat. And so just going through the in-depth process of that, is actually exciting because we're going to actually add on some more layers of value. So I'm really excited about that.
What's interesting is that you said adding a grab bar or anti-slip mat. And it's like, most people won't even think of that. And I would be like, there's numerous times where I looked at it for myself. That's a laugh about it, of course, but no, it's a big seriousness to it.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. No doubt. And I think, just being able to live in a house if you want to stay there as opposed to going to a nursing home, slips and falls are one of the leading causes of death. And so it's really amongst seniors. And so once you get to a certain age and, you were just talking about your eyes, just think about, when your eyes were 30 and, 28 and 29 and 30, sleeping with contacts is no big deal. But when you're 50 and you're 60, your eyes are older and all of your body parts are older. And the reality is that the body starts to decline over time. And so we've got to learn how to make adjustments in every aspect of our life, man. So it's just interesting how this theme about aging just begins to manifest itself in different ways, man. So we can definitely talk a lot about that, in the upcoming episodes, man. So I want to jump into some current events and talk about the LA Olympics. Is that cool with you?
Absolutely. Okay. I'm good with that. I'm very interested in the LA Olympics. The last time was 30 years ago. What was it? Was it in Atlanta? What was it? Was it Atlanta?
It was in Atlanta, 1996. And so this is the first time, I have written right here, in over 30 years, the Olympics are going to be from July 14th to the 28th in 2028 in LA. So that's one fact. And then, interesting about Atlanta because, it was an event here on U.S. soil where there was an attack there with the bombing and, so many people got injured and things like that. And so because of that, the Department of Homeland Security says this. They said that in 2028, they designated the National Special Security Event, NSSE. And so that means that the Secret Service needs to get involved. And so on August 5th, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order creating the White House Task Force. And so, so you've got all of these upgrades that Los Angeles is talking about and the whole idea of creating a people mover train and all of this money that's going to be flooding into that area. And you're talking about, hundreds of millions of people that are going to be in the Los Angeles area. So there's a lot to talk about and to unpack, man. So I'm really interested in getting your perspective about LA 2028, the White House getting involved and all of that. What's on your mind?
I'm just trying to still figure out who selected LA to be the area to represent the United States of America for the Olympics. Cause I'm just kind of like, how does that happen? I haven't even figured that out yet. I'm just still trying to figure that out because I remember
there's actually a committee. There's an Olympic committee that gets together, and what they'll do is they will select the different the different cities over the next X number of Olympics. And so it's not like every 4 years they'll get together to select one. I don't know which one's after LA 2028, but that had been decided probably, 7-8 years ago. Don't quote me on the exact amount of time, but it was a while ago.
I'm actually looking that up right now. Los Angeles wasn't just randomly picked for the 2028 Olympics. It was a product of a unique. Okay, so see, here's the problem I have. It was a product of unique, see the word unique, behind the scenes negotiation between IOC, International Olympic Committee, Paris, and LA after bidding process that took a surprising turn. LA originally bid for the 2024 Summer Olympics competing against Paris, Budapest, but by 2017, most rivals dropped out. So in other words, they got the deal on this behind closed doors. So some type of unique agreement or negotiation. It's just interesting to me because I don't know. I mean, my thoughts on there is like, I don't know if LA is ready for something like that. Or maybe I'm wrong, but I've driven around LA. I've experienced LA just as recently as 2 months ago. And honestly, even by SoFi. Have you been to SoFi? Have you been to SoFi and all that?
I have not been inside of the stadium yet, but I've been over there quite a few times.
You've been in the area.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
The challenge I have with everything in that... Go ahead, Len.
It was just an aside just to say I've been to lots of events and driven over there and experienced the traffic and all of that. So I have a general sense of where you're going with that. So go ahead.
I went to SoFi. I went around there, City Walk. I went to, interestingly enough, the JW right there by City Walk and everything, or not, I might be saying it wrong, but City Center, Staples Center, all that stuff. And you have graffiti towers. I'm sure you know what that is.
LA Live.
Yes, LA Live. And you have you've seen the graffiti towers, right? Graffiti towers, the vacant. I'm just like, to me, the problem is that anything that is there, it's nice when you get in, but it's not nice when you get out. And to me, the Olympics is this big thing where it's outdoors a lot. And where are they going to put the village? Where's that going to go? I mean, to me, it's like, I don't know if that city is ready for that type of influx, number one, but not only that, it's a lot of cleanup. And I know it's a few years away, but I mean, just the controversy behind it is just, the transgender athlete ban and the local backlash with critics. LA, LA is its own kind of thing. You saw that with just them continuously bucking, the national trend. But I just don't know if that city's ready to handle that type of event. And I'm just kind of like, why did we pick that as the shining light of a United States where, and maybe I'm not trying to dump on LA or anything, but I wouldn't live there. I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't live there. Even if I was in Hollywood or any of that stuff, I wouldn't live there. And I remember when I worked in the entertainment industry and I had to travel to Melrose, and this was back in early 2000s, I still didn't like to go there. And that was like 02, 03, 04. I'm just kind of, how is that going to play out? I'm just curious to see how that's going to play out. I don't know if the city's ready for it.
Okay, well, I think the argument for it is that the Olympics was in LA in 1980. So they've had experience hosting an Olympics. So that's one. Number two, if you look at the area of Los Angeles, like the greater Los Angeles area, I think a lot of times what happens is Los Angeles gets dumped on by the media because of Skid Row. Rightfully so. I think the homeless issue has become a major problem and it's exacerbated over the years. And that's a big issue and that's real. I've seen it with my own eyes. We've gone to feed in Skid Row during holidays. So you've seen it yourself because we were there together. And so and only has it grown even since then. So that's definitely a factor. But if you look at on the flip side of it, you look at UCLA is nearby. So you've got a large campus where you can have lots of events. You have USC that's nearby. You have a large campus that can host lots of events. Then you have the LA Coliseum and then you have SoFi Stadium. So from a venue standpoint, LA is definitely ready for it. So that's one thing. Quick sidebar. When you look at places in the past that have hosted events, the Olympics rather, a lot of times those stadiums are not used anymore. Like when you look at Beijing, that whole area, that whole Olympic Village is a ghost town and nobody uses it anymore. And so with LA, the infrastructure for the events is there. Now, one point that you really have that you're on point about that I think Los Angeles really needs to focus on is the infrastructure from the standpoint of traffic. So they are building a people mover train, but the problem is that, there's so much traffic and I just don't know how much they can build to help curtail that between now and then. I mean, right now it's 2025. So unless they build a number of additions to the subway, because I just don't see the people mover train being the solution. But in terms of venues and the niceness of the events, like once you're there, it'll be great because they have plenty of venues that'll be able to be great hosts for any of those types of events, whether it's swimming, track and field. They'll be able to do that easily, even more so than 1980.
I definitely see the point, and I agree with you with as far as venues. I mean, LA is definitely, it's definitely built out for that. You've got a lot of that good stuff going there. Again, the problem I just see is that infrastructure is, not only is it not capable of handling that kind of people, but it's ugly. Like, it's just like you go inside and it's nice, but once you go out of there, it's ugly. And then, I don't know. To me, it's like, I'm excited about the Olympics. I'm excited that it's in America. I'm excited that it's there. I'm excited it's in my home state, but I'm just not excited about the fact that it's in LA. Just can't get over it.
I think so to me, I agree with you about the ugliness of it. Cause when you drive into, the Staples Center, which is now crypto.com arena where the Lakers play and where the Clippers used to play, you've got the Intuit Arena, which is beautiful. SoFi Stadium, which is beautiful. And even the surrounding areas over there, they're absolutely amazing. So one interesting thing that typically happens during the Olympics is it's amazing how well things get cleaned up. And so I have a sneaky suspicion that Skid Row is going to be immaculate by July of 2028, some way, somehow. I just have a feeling about that. Now, what they're going to do in between now and then, and where they're going to take the homeless and reship them and redistribute them, I think that's another question. And I definitely think, I'm glad you're bringing this topic up because this wasn't on my radar, but I think following that trend of how they're handling the homeless, and are they going to put them on buses and displace them other places? I have no idea, but I'm very interested because I promise you, if you decide to come to LA to go to an Olympic event, you can come hang out because I'm going to plan on going, and we'll see. We'll take a drive around, man, and maybe we can, shoot some video and upload it to the YouTube, man, and, see what happens. But I believe that LA area and Skid Row is going to be cleaned up by then. My assumption.
So are you proposing to take me on a date and go to the Olympics together in 2028?
Yeah,
if
man,
you are, I'm game. I'm game for that.
Let's do it, bro.
I am.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
I've never ever been to one live, so I would love to go to one live. I would love to do that. I'll take probably some of my kids with me, but I think that would be great. I just hope that the same people that are making the People Mover are not the same people making that we're doing high speed rail in California, because then there's no chance in that. Not trying to kind of throw anything your way on that one. LA, but
no, that's a good point. Now, here's the difference though. The high speed rail is inconsequential as it relates to America's sense of projecting itself on the world stage. The Olympics, all eyes are on the US. So you best believe, having a president like Trump who doesn't like to be embarrassed, you best believe LA will be immaculate.
You think that's why he's stepping in?
Oh, well, I think it's that. And then I also think because in the last Olympics, you had the bombing in Atlanta. So being able to come in and sweep the area, make sure checking once, 2 times, 3 times. I think it's going to be one of the most secure venues in Olympics that has ever taken place in the last 100 years, for sure.
100%. I agree with you. The thing that gives me optimism and hope about the LA Olympics is the fact that Trump did pass that executive order, or is passing that executive order, and is stepping in, and there's federal management of it. To me, I feel like that is the game changer. And really, to be very transparent about it, I really think the Olympics should be federally oversought with conjunction with the state that is being hosted, and just simply because it is a national event, right? I mean, I think that that's a good idea to have that. I mean, a lot of people are saying, it's federal overreach and things like that. But I mean, I think it's a good thing that to have that federal oversight on there, federal resources involved in it. And I mean, we've proven time and time again with, the onset of Doge and all these things, local municipalities over the last 5, 10, 20 years have done an abysmal job of managing books, finances, money, and spending money on appropriations. And to lend to your point, I think that will also give us a good chance to stop waste. Like you have said, a lot of these Olympic villages I've even seen in South America, they're built out and then they never use them again. So I'd like to see those resources there. And I hope for your sake and anyone else that is living in those suburbs of LA County or the outskirts of LA County, like San Bernardino, Riverside, all those cities that were great. LA County does have a historical record of busing the people they don't want in their county anymore to those counties. So I know that, and I've seen that. So hopefully that doesn't happen again with those wanted. They want them now, but unwanted until they come back for voter registration again. And that's a whole other topic we could talk about. I'm not trying to throw a sidebar in there at us, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I definitely want to follow that story because like I said, until you brought it up, it wasn't even on my radar as even an interesting topic to discuss. But I think if you dig beneath the surface, it's this whole idea of putting on your pretty face when, companies around, and what happens after that, what's going to happen to those areas after that. And so I'm really interested to see how that unfolds. So that's good, man. So speaking of current events, there's been this brewing topic of conversation with a company called American Eagle and an actress called Sydney Sweeney. And so, a couple of facts I want to read to you. So the ad came out in 2025, in July of 2025, and the jeans campaign, starring actress, Sydney Sweeney, there was a tagline that said, "Sydney Sweeney has great jeans." And so this whole campaign went viral, as you know, and there's two different opposing viewpoints about this ad. So I wanted to get your take. What are your thoughts about it? And, obviously, because information travels so fast and we do this once a week, sometimes topics don't stay in the headlines for a long time. But to me, it's really this ideology about just this overly sensitive culture on the one hand versus this, eugenics culture on the other hand, on these two polar opposites. And so I wanted to get your take on just that whole topic of conversation.
Well, what's interesting is number one, on the surface of it, I just got to wake up and ask the question, when did everybody in America become so sensitive? Or maybe it's okay to be sensitive now. Like, I went back and I looked at the Levi's jeans from like the 90s with Cindy Crawford in it. And they've got the two young kids just like drooling at her. And she's got the tank top and nipples are poking through. And I'm going, this was the 90s. I understand 90s were crazy, but it's more crazy now. But I'm like, I just don't know why we bridge that gap and go, oh my God, I was talking, like I saw people getting interviewed of it, Len, on the internet. And I'm just like, people were having like panic attack going, oh my God, it's so bad. And it's just like, I don't understand why it's so sensitive. You have the choice whether or not to buy that brand and to look at those brands, right? So I just don't understand why that's so sensitive because, for example, there are things that could be done on the opposite of that could make someone like, me, who's maybe more conservative, go, oh my God. But it's like, that was funny. That's a good one right there. I was like, for example, the Dylan Mulvaney stuff. I didn't care that he was doing the Bud Light stuff. I thought it was funny. I was like, that's hilarious. Good job on you. They rolled the dice and they didn't win. They rolled the dice on the Dylan Mulvaney stuff and they didn't win. But nobody, and maybe they was going, oh my God. Most sensible people were going, that was funny, but it's, who cares, right? Like, it is what it is, right? Didn't make me think any differently of Bud Light. And now, coincidentally or weirdly enough, Bud Light, I think, just hired her to be Sydney Sweeney to be their spokesperson. So,
I did not know that. That's very interesting.
Or it's rumored or it's trending or something to that effect, right? I just think it's funny. But but the most interesting thing that I see out of all this, and maybe you have seen this too, Len, is that what you're starting to see and what I've seen with the whole Sydney Sweeney, jeans ad is that you're starting to see that there's not two groups of people now. There's three groups in America. There's the alt-left, the alt-right, and there's the middle ground people that are just like looking at this going, all you maniacs on the left are crazy and all you maniacs on the right are extremely crazy too. You're both crazy. Can we just kind of figure this out in the middle thing? And that's kind of where I look at it. I'm going, I just don't get it. I saw the ad. I don't know if you saw the follow-up ad. Dunkin' Donuts did the boy of summer. You seen the young man? He said, I didn't ask to be the man of summer, or something. I said, golden's my color. I'm going, awesome. That's just great, right? And then you've got these other people on the other side that are doubling down, doing the counter of that. Like I think it was Abercrombie or something like that, where they had the plus size models and all that stuff, and the Abercrombie stuff, and they're doing the exact opposite of what's going on. So there's like this war going on, and I'm going, who cares about any of that? I think the biggest thing for me is that it was a great ad. It was genius. I know most people can look at it, yeah, but you don't understand, Chris. It's a play on genetics. I don't think it was a joke. It's satire, okay? It was satire. And when did satire become unrealistic in America? But I think for me, the biggest thing is it made me go, yeah, there's crazy people on the right, there's crazy people on the left, and we just all need to get back to the middle. I think it was a great ad. I loved it. It makes me want to go, I don't wear American Eagle, but it makes me want to go look in a store next time. It makes me want to go look in an American Eagle Outfitter store, and I've never been in one, just because of the ad. I have no desire to go into any of the other stores that are advertising opposite of that, and maybe it just doesn't appeal to me. But that's the genius of marketing. That marketing appeals to a lot of people, and the counter of that marketing, which could be the more sensitive, the more inclusive marketing or whatever, appeals to that side of people. And that's really the perspective there that I think most people just need to go, It's marketing, guys. No one's saying anything that she has these better genes, the genetics than anybody, right? And to be honest, Len, and I don't like saying to be honest, but to be really, blunt about it, no one was complaining from the rooftops like they are right now about Sydney Sweeney or about Kim Kardashian being the it girl for the last 20 years. And that style of woman, right? Think about it. For the last 20 years, since I can remember being, my early 20s and the early 2000s, the it girl was a brunette with an hourglass shape, with a bigger butt and a bigger boobs, and the darker skin and the accentuated makeup, like Kim Kardashian. That's the look. And who's the other one? They all. I can't remember all the names of them, and now everyone seems like they're upset. The powers that be are upset that Sydney Sweeney is the it girl again. And guess what? She has real boobs. She has a more traditional frame of a woman. She doesn't have a big butt. She doesn't have the curvy thing like all these. So it's like, are we upset that the it girls change and it's not that other camp anymore? And that's really the other camp is complaining? That's to me what it seems like is going on.
Whoa, that's a lot to unpack. I didn't know where you were going to go with it. And so I'm going to try to see if I can address a lot of the topics you brought up. So the first one is just this idea that, okay, if you're a group that doesn't like what's going on. So let's say, for example, you're a Christian and there's a movie that came out that was objectionable about your faith. Well, I think it's dumb to go to the social media highways and byways and scream about trying to convince people not to go see that movie, because the moment they do that, what's everybody going to do? They're going to want to go see that movie, right? Like, what is it? What is all of this ruckus people are talking about? And so to me, I think the people who were incensed about the commercial, I think they should have just stayed quiet, because it would not have created the amount of headlines if they would have just shut up about it. Now, I don't have any strong feelings about the content of the commercial. There was it was a play on words between genes and genetics and stuff like that. It was intentional. So I think on the one hand, to say that the pun was accidental, I think that's disingenuous, because there was an intentional play on the word genes and genes. Now, was I offended by it? Did I think that it was about eugenics and the superiority of white people? No, I don't think that. Do I think that they were saying, hey, her genes are good, meaning she's beautiful and the way she looks and the way she wears our genes is beautiful, and her eyes happen to be blue and she got those genes from her parents? Okay, she's beautiful. She's a beautiful person. And so to suggest that she isn't, even though she's not my personal type, I would be foolish and I would be disingenuous to say that she's not a beautiful person. She's gorgeous. She's the it actor right now. She's in all the different kinds of shows. And so for American Eagle to have her on their show is brilliant. And also, it didn't hurt that their stock went up between 10 and 24%, depending upon how you measure it. So their bottom line was increased by millions of dollars. So shout out to American Eagle. Now, for all of the ideas about, what you talked about, certain shapes and sizes and all of that, I think that it's a problem. It's concerning for any one look to be defined as the look, right? Because women come in all shapes and sizes. They come in all colors, from the darkest of the dark to the lightest of the light, to, really dark eyes to blue eyes. And so, to each his own. I think I'm assuming because of the look of our wives, you and I have different taste in women, right? And so, so to put people in this classification is a problem. But the last thing that I'll say, unless you have something else, is, to me, You put more attention on something to something you shout from the rooftops. If you wanted that article to go away, you should not have said anything. You should not have been you shouldn't have been overly sensitive about it.
Yeah, did they come out and say that it was accidental, or there wasn't a pun on the words?
No, there were some. So there was a statement. I wish I had the statement, but they said something to the effect. I'm talking about American Eagle, that she looks great in her jeans. The commercial was just about jeans, and that was it. And so it didn't speak to the pun, which I think I wouldn't say that it was disingenuous on their part, but you omitted the whole play on jeans, which that's just factually incorrect. I mean, if you take her whole script and what she said, there was a pun, and I think it was clever. I just think because they got called out on it, they decided to take a stance and say, look, we support what we did. So that's what you have. So what are you going to do about it? And they should do that. I think that they could have said that, hey, it was a nice, clever way to talk about jeans and jeans. She's a beautiful person. There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah, I agree. If they came out and said, oh, we didn't intend it to be that way, I think that's horse crap. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, realistically, she's the it girl right now. And she's not an it girl for me. I mean, that's not my type. My type is more like Kim Kardashian. That's more my type. But that's the reality today. And I think there's a lot of people that are upset that that's the it girl again now. And I think we just are in that spot right now where people are looking at that, and there's a group of people on the left and there's a group of people on the right that are continually to make it an issue. And I think the majority of us in the middle are going, shut up already.
Yeah, I'm going to read the statement.
This is America. This is what America's known for, right?
Yes,
I mean, can you imagine, for example, you know who Bill Burr is, right? He's a comedian.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Do you think Bill Burr would be allowed to do stand-up today?
He'd be X'd out, man. He would have definitely been canceled for sure.
Okay, he's a white guy. Do you think Dave Chappelle would be able to do stand up today the way he did?
They're trying to cancel him now. The LGBTQ community is trying to cancel him.
Think about that.
You're right. And that's the thing.
Why?
When you get into comedy, like, to me, comedy's off limits, bro. Like, comedy is supposed to expand the boundaries. It's supposed to make fun of things. It's supposed to be satirical. No comedian, unless you are using comedy to denigrate people in a way that is, that puts people down. Like, if you're doing it in a way where it's funny, it's tongue in cheek, and, you're not using it as a way to say somebody's inferior, the comedy should be off limits for all of that cancellation stuff, man. Let me read to you
Go for it.
What they said. American Eagle addressed the controversy, and this is what they said. Sydney Sweeney has great genes, Jeans, was always intended to be about the genes themselves and not about genetics or eugenics. They emphasize that their message celebrates how everyone can wear their American Eagle genes with confidence. And so I agree with them that it wasn't about eugenics and white superiority, but it was about the fact that she has good genes, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. The audience can look at this podcast right now, and they can look at you. You're in your mid-50s. You've got great genes. You look like you're in your 40s.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not in my mid-50s yet, man, but
almost.
I'm getting there. Yes.
You're closer to it than you are. You're closer to mid-50s than you.
Don't tell anybody.
I'm closer.
I'm closer.
Secret. I know. I'm 44 now, so I'm closer to my mid-40s than I am. So as soon as I turn 45, I'm still closer to my 40s than I am my 50s left. Okay?
This is a fact. Yep,
but you're absolutely right. She does have great genes. She's a beautiful girl. She's beautiful. And I'm sorry, but everybody wants to be with her. And she is the it person right now. And I think it's a phenomenal and it's a great marketing strategy. And guess what? Kudos to them for doubling down. And here's another point that you're making. I think maybe this will tie into what you're saying about, when we talked a little bit about comedy and making sure comedy doesn't, detriment to somebody, this is where it gets a little scary for me. I love the fact that she came out, she did that video afterwards and she was on the range shooting the gun. Did you see that? Like, she's doing target practice and she's a badass.
I did see that. I did see that.
Right? You're just like, yes, right? And you're like, kudos to her for doing that, right? Because she's a woman and she did it, right? Mm-hmm. But where it gets me a little sideways is where now all of a sudden you've got these people, and I don't know who it is on the left or the right, whoever did it, where they're digging up and advertising her voter registration. And of course, she's voted as a Republican, and that's where it's like, see that what does that have to do with anything? And that is the attack, I think, because that's sacred in our country. It doesn't matter how you voted. Whether you voted for Biden or Trump, at the end of the day, you are still my neighbor. And you are still an American. You still pick me up when I'm down, and I still pick you up when you're down, and we still look out for each other. And when we start pulling up, oh my God, look, she's a registered Republican. Oh, come on. Really? What does that have to do with any of it?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, unfortunately, both sides of the aisle does that. When people, like, for example, I would never run for office because they would make assumptions about my voting record for sure. And so, unfortunately,
I used to want to, Len, and you know that. I don't want to anymore. I used to want to fervently and passionately, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore in today's climate. And I would love, I'll figure out different ways to serve.
Yeah. And unfortunately, and I think that you'd make a good president, just because you're intelligent, you are rational and things like that. Not just because you're my friend and a colleague, but I think that there are people that are out there, especially who's had experience in running businesses and being around people and understanding and having a good, not only IQ, but a good EQ as well. But, unfortunately, when you look at both sides of the aisle, they both throw pot shots, man, and they do it in from the standpoint of, we need to win this argument. So, to your point, pulling up her voter record, man, that is so unfortunate to do that because it makes you look dumb. It makes you look petty. And I think both sides need to be, condemned for that type of activity of just making assumptions about somebody. Now, if you are a person that's already in office and there is an issue and a topic and you've been accepting certain contributions and you can see a correlation between those contributions and how you voted, I think that becomes part of the record that needs to be displayed. I agree with that. But in her case, she's an actor. Like, who cares who she voted for? That's why when you go to the voting booth, there's a booth and it hides and conceals who you vote for. There's a reason for that. And so I just think that it's wrong to bring up that person's voting record on public display. I just don't agree with it at all. So, and that I think is a perfect segue to go to social media because, when I was younger, back in my day,
right, you had the yellow pages. Go to a phone booth and go like this and find you the yellow pages or the white pages directory.
That's exactly right, man. And now with social media, everything's on full display. And so the way in which we judge people, because unfortunately, when somebody does something wrong in public, because of social media, it's never forgotten. There was a couple of statistics that I looked up in preparation. Look at this. It says that teens using social media for more than 3 hours a day double the chances of feeling depressed or anxious. Another thing says that feeling stressed and burned out is that over 10% of adolescents show signs of having problematic social media behavior where they can't stop using it even when it's hurting them. And so, when you think about teens, social media, anxiety, mental health challenges, peer pressure, and all of that, talk to me about just your thoughts about how old should a teen or should a person be when they get access to social media? What are your thoughts, especially having kids with the wide range that you have?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, I have a very laissez-faire we have a very laissez-faire type of philosophy for our kids. And we always have. We talk to them about adult things. Everybody has a conversation with each other. It's all family oriented. My son is 14. He just barely got Snapchat last year. Like barely, as a 14-year-old going into high school. Like just barely getting Snapchat. Like barely. My kids, and before that, I let him do YouTube because he's streaming and doing stuff with video games and stuff like it. Having some good success with it because he liked it. But I think when you have a conversation and you keep your kids busy and you show them the difference between the world and you have a good family structure, my kids don't crave that. And my kids are not nerds, by the way. I mean, not that there's something wrong with nerds. I was one. I wasn't a nerd. I was a geek. I was a computer geek. But my kids have the trendy haircut, the whatever that is, you know what I'm talking about.
All that.
The curls that hang over your face and everything. It looks like an alpaca. I mean, they wear the trendy clothes. They are very much so into that. But at the same time, my kids are very grounded, and we've done a very good job of that. But we've talked to them about it extensively. Hey, here's what social media is. Here's how it works. Social media is pretty much an extension of the drama that happens at school, but magnified by 100x, right? And it's international. I also make my kids watch, the predatory documentaries about social media, what can happen, the bad things. But I also tell my kids, and we've told them this since they could talk, I don't care what anyone tells you. I don't care if somebody says to you, we're going to kill you, we're going to kill your mom and dad, we're going to kill your family. Tell them, come bring it on. Because we're not afraid of anybody. I don't care who you are. I tell my kids, don't ever be afraid of anybody. My wife tells them, has beaten it into them. Don't anyone ever bully you. We're not afraid of nobody. I don't care if you accidentally screwed up and you sent a naked picture of yourself to someone, say, go ahead, send it out there. Please make sure you get in touch with my parents' lawyers so that we can get royalties to it. That's it. Some people go, oh my God, that's a crazy conversation. But you know what? I don't have, thank God to this day, an issue with cyberbullying or anything like that or social media problems. My kids do get a cell phone when they turn 10. So they all look forward to that. And we monitor it. I'm linked. Every one of my kids have an Apple ID that's linked to a dummy phone that no one uses, so I can monitor everything they do, their text messages, all that stuff. And I never have to do it. Thank God I've never had to do it. I had a little bit of a quarrel with my 18-year-old daughter for about 2 or 3 months last summer, where she was doing some tough stuff on the internet. But thankfully it was caught because, again, trust but verify, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't even bad. It was like, this is so silly. I can't believe you're doing it. But it leads to that, right, Len? It leads to that. To me, I don't think kids need to be on social media this early. I don't think kids need to have that kind of stuff. Look, I survived without a cell phone till I was a senior in high school. Right? And it was a prepaid
You
track
sound like
phone.
the old dude now.
I'm the old dude, right? I had a Motorola StarTAC, right? But you don't need it. Now, did they do it in California? I know they did it in San Diego. They just did it here in Texas, where children are not allowed to have personal devices at school anymore. Did you know?
It's school district by school district.
Okay.
So they tried that out here, but it didn't work. And so they had to figure out a different way.
San Diego Unified is doing it this year. And I know this year the district that I'm in is doing it. But my kids don't have a problem with that because, again, my kids, they're going to take their phones with them, but they're going to leave it in the backpack, which they did all last year. So they don't have a problem with that. The thing that scares me the most, and I'll throw it back over to you, is just recently, I think it was last week, Lil Tay just turned 18. She turned 18 on July 29th of 2025. She's an influencer. She got on OnlyFans a couple days after she's turned 18 and made $1 million in less than 8 days or something like that, or 1 day or something like that on OnlyFans, just turning 18. She's 18. And you've seen a picture of her, Len? That is disgusting. It's disgusting. And her dad is her attorney and runs it or something like that? Disgusting. I'm sorry, but there's got to be, legal age for drinking is 21. Legal age for OnlyFans ought to be 21. You're 18. You have that is disgusting. So I'll turn it back over to you because not only we've seen the time and time again. Did you ever watch the Nickelodeon Files?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, you got to watch that. The documentary about Nickelodeon and the horrifics that happened with the kids with Nickelodeon and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I don't want to say the guy's name because just look it up. It's on Netflix, I think. But just seeing historically, and you and I know this because we grew up seeing this, the child stars and how majority of child stars end up destroyed or abused. Corey Feldman, I mean, think about that, right? And there's numbers of those. The destruction that we are doing to children mentally by propping them up on sites like this and allowing them to do this, and I understand they're 18, they can do what they want, it's detrimental. Because what's going to end up happening in the next 10 to 20 years as shifts change, we're equipping these kids to think that they got to sell all this stuff on social media. And when that phase and that happens and they're left without any substance, Len, what's going to happen to this generation of kids 10, 20, 30 years from now when they're trying to operate in a world that completely shifts and we don't have the dynamics that we have now, because what they're bred and what they're growing up to think is normal is not. It's fleeting. It's going to go away. It's passé. It's going to disappear with trends. That to me is disgusting, and I think we're exploiting people that way by doing it that way. And I understand they're making money, and it's their choice, but there's here I am, the person who's saying putting restrictions on stuff, right? To me, it's disgusting. I'll throw it over to you, Len, because it's just, I have daughters. It's gross. I would not want my daughter on OnlyFans at 18. It's just gross.
100%. I think having raised kids and also having a wife that is an educator has given me perspective about how
in psychology has in psychology.
Yes. And, she's counseled kids and things like that. And so she's had a firsthand account of the impact of social media. And as parents, we've had to deal with that. She and I went back and forth about how old our sons would be. And so for our first son, my thinking was, because we hadn't dealt with this issue, like, hey, he can wait until he's 13. That did not go over very well in the Cooper household. So needless to say, he got his first cell phone at around either 11 or 12. I mean, he's 28 now, so it's been a while. Our second son, he grew up as a digital native. And so even though they're only 2.5 years apart, their exposure to social media has been significant. And so both of my sons had to come back home from college during COVID. And so we had some really extensive conversations around this idea of social media. And there was a Netflix special that was on. And so we watched that, and it talked about just how the algorithms are formulated in a way that gets us addicted to the next thing, to keep us on, to keep our attention there. And so my younger son found himself being on social media all the time. And so he made a decision because, we had a conversation about it. And I'm not saying that we were the reason that he made the decision. But what I do believe is that because we're an open family, because we talk about different social issues, because we talk about different personal issues, and we've even told them, hey, listen, if there's something that you don't feel confident or comfortable talking to mom or dad about, go talk to one of the people in our communities, your aunts and uncles and stuff like that, or your cousins that can give you some good sound advice. And you don't even have to tell us what you talk to them about. We're not here to meddle in every single thing you do. We just want to make sure that the things that you don't tell us about, that you're getting sound advice on, because I've grown up around so many people who had this social pressure to be perfect. They're pastors' kids. And so oftentimes the pastors' kids are the ones who end up going the most wayward because they just snap under the pressure. So we didn't want our kids to have this pressure to be perfect. And so our younger son decided, you know what, when I'm asleep, I'm not having the phone by me. I'm going to have it in a different room. When I'm working, the phone is turned off or it's turned over. The notifications are off. And so sometimes we'll reach out to him and he won't get back to us because when he's focused on certain things, social media, because it used to be something that was pulling him, it scared him away from it. Okay. That's on one extreme because he has, supportive parents and all of those things. There are other situations where kids live in chaos at home, where kids don't necessarily have the same levels of support. And I'm not putting a value judgment on that, because kids grow up with single moms or single dads, and, they're not in control of that. So it's not their fault or anything like that. But what happens is so many people, because of social media, end up portraying this certain lifestyle that doesn't exist, or they end up using social media as a weapon to bully. And there have been people that I can tell you that I know about that have committed suicide because of the pressure of social media, because there's this perception that everything you do is on complete public display. And, we all live in echo chambers to a certain degree. So imagine the mind of a 12-year-old middle school child who thinks that, and something about them has gone viral and the entire school knows about it. Now, in their world, that's as if they're walking outside and everybody's looking at them, and they know that dirty, dark little thing or believe that dirty, dark little secret that somebody told about them. And so they think their world is over, and they're a fraud, or that they're a bad person, they're a dirty person, and they commit suicide or they attempt to take their own life. And I think that's a major problem. And so I think because of that, I think there needs to be more controls. Like, I don't think anybody younger than the age of 12 or 13 should be producing content. Like, when I say content, I'm talking about like, hey, this is so-and-so, and I want to review X, Y, and Z toy. Like, anything before that, I think is a problem. But to end my point and to talk about your point about OnlyFans, anything under 21 is a major problem, because what is it like for a 35-year-old man to be with an 18-year-old girl sexually? That's off limits, right? You can't, no, that's disgusting. So when a person puts themselves out there on OnlyFans, you're asking for all of this attention. And as a result of that, sometimes that attention is going to turn into stalkerish behavior. And so I've got a major problem again about people putting out that type of content. It shouldn't be allowed, point blank, period.
And it's interesting because you say that, it's like, we know about a few things, like obviously, for example, like Taylor Swift, when she would get harassed or have stalkers and all that stuff. Obviously, this is Taylor Swift we're talking about, but that kind of crap can happen with this stuff as well. And these people don't have that type of security protocol or budget that a Taylor Swift has. And yes, absolutely. It's interesting to me is how has social media and the advent of that, in your perspective of what you've seen, because you have young men now in their late teens or early 20s, right? Or mid 20s now, right? Oh my gosh, how old is your oldest now?
28.
Can you believe you that, right? How has that affected them as far as like relationships or dating world and real world? Because I almost feel like going back to a little bit more of your point, where it's like, I look at it today and I see what my kids look at and I go, and I think just for myself, and I'm a pretty confident person. I was a pretty confident kid, but I go, how do any of these boys look at these girls, and how do these boys look at these girls, and vice versa, and go, I can't compete with that. I can't be like that. And you have, for example, before the bar was set so high for kids the pressure to fit in and to look good and all that stuff. But then you put social media out there, and like you said, like I joke about it all the time. I go, oh, look at that. They have a great social media marriage, but in real life, it's crap, right?
That's right.
So these kids look at this and go, oh, that's what a girl's supposed to look like. That's what a boy's supposed to look like. And it's so unrealistic. How has that bled in, or has it affected your boys as far as dating and relationships? Because I know for my two olders, it's atrocious. It's atrocious.
Yeah. I think the sword cuts both ways. So I'll speak in general, then I'll talk about my family in particular. I think that when boys look at girls, understanding that girls are judging them based on this idealized norm, the same thing's happening to them, because I think because boys have been exposed to so many different versions of girls that are out there, there's this false sense of perfection on both sides that people are holding each other to. And I think that's a problem, because what happens is, like, for example, if I, as a guy, know that I'm a 7, let's take 7 out of the equation. I'm a 6, right?
I think you're a 9, Len. I think maybe solid 9.5 when you're in a suit, but you're not.
Hey, I appreciate that. I'm speaking in general. So let's say I'm a 6, right? As a guy, I'm not going to be able to get an 8 or a 9 as a female, for a female. That's just not realistic. And likewise, if you're a 6 as a female, you're not pulling a high value man. You're going to get somebody that's just right around average. And so I think what happens is there's these idealized notions of beauty, and what happens is in lifestyle and how people carry themselves, because what we put on social media, that's only a fraction of the sliver of the top of the iceberg of who we really are. And so with my sons, I think they kind of lucked out because being in college exposed them to a lot of people in their peer group. And so they both went to historically Black colleges. And so, and the thing about, we call those HBCUs. And so with HBCUs, there's typically, like, my son's school was like 60% female, 65% female, 35% male. So, for him, he's a good looking kid. He's smart. He's charming. He had options. We'll just put it that way. And my younger son went to a school where it wasn't quite the same ratio, but it was like 55, 45, 60, 40 female to men. So he had lots of options himself. And so my younger son happens to be with one of the young ladies that he met in college. So, and he's a good looking kid too. And again, obviously I'm biased as a parent, but I think objectively, people would say that my kids are good looking kids, right? So, but that's because they have, a lot going for them. Imagine the kid that might be overweight. Imagine the kid that might not have been blessed with the good looks, and they have these idealized perspectives about what they want from a female. And that's why these different, whatever you call them, red pill communities and stuff like that start to pop up, because guys, we know what our status is, and we kind of know where we fit in the pecking order amongst females, but social media is throwing that all off, man. So it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. It hasn't been in my household, but overall I see it's a real challenge.
I just think, like, when you see this stuff, I see the dating pool for 18, 19 and mid 20-year-old girls. I see the dating pool with having daughters in that age group. I'm like, these boys are, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I don't know. And then, but vice versa, I see with my son Emery, I see stuff and I'm like, wow, it's just not the same for me. That it just, I think that we're setting our kids up by giving them too many devices.
When you can swipe left or swipe right, that's a problem.
Right. But the thing is that most people go, or here's my argument to it all. It should not be restricted, because that goes against a lot of rights, right? But there should be some safeguards, and like OnlyFans, definitely 21 years old.
Yes. But
my call would be that my onus would be a lot on the parents in the households, and really would be on that is like parents us as parents, we just have to do a better job. We have to be more vigilant. We have to take a concerned effort with looking at this stuff. Doesn't mean you have to be a helicopter parent, because I'm not one by any means. Like, if you say helicopter parent, I'm the exact opposite of that. Like, right? But at the same time, you have to take time in the critical things like this. And this is a very critical thing, because this could be detriment. Like, my daughter was, I will say it. I mean, it was a very hard thing, Len, and I don't want to, for sake of privacy, I don't want to say
don't put her business out there, but yeah.
Yeah, it was very hard. It was very difficult. But either way, I do think that there needs to be some type of age restrictions on social media stuff. I just think that we need to be responsible with it. And I think that it's creating a lot. It's just creating a lot of false standards, right? And people that are influencers on social media, they get paid to look perfect and get paid to live this. I'm on dream vacation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's just not the reality. And guess what? Influencers get sick. Influencers have bad days. Influencers have throw up. They have diarrhea. They don't look good in the morning. They have bad breath. Like, they don't look that way all the time. That is a camera, and that's Hollywood. And I think that we're spending too much time allowing things to become too Hollywoodized. And I'm not saying it's the Hollywood's fault. I'm just saying that is a reference point, because we look at Hollywood and everything's perfect, and we all know that's a nasty business too. But that's a different time for a different thing. Parents watch social media. Just get on it. And half the parents that are going to look at this they're in the same boat as well, I think. I remember when Facebook came out. I remember when MySpace first came out. I remember all those things. I remember I was an IT director when MySpace was around and Facebook first came out. And I remember my CEO at the time came and he said, "What is this MySpace thing?" And I said, "I don't know. I think it's coming. I think it's a MySpace wannabe." Right?
Are you talking about Facebook?
Yeah, they say MySpace was already out. My CEO comes and goes, "What is this Facebook thing?" I think it's a MySpace wannabe, but I don't know.
Little did we know.
And that's the direction we're in. But in talking about kids, I mean, something I think we could get really passionate about here is just, and I know we've talked about this a lot. Unless you have anything else in effect to social media, I think you might have. Go ahead.
No. I think we put a bow on that topic for now. I think when you just tying in the next topic, which is I have to eat a certain way to look a certain way. And the reality is that the way we treat food is very different. And so, I know that offline we were talking about the whole idea of eating to death and how eating has really shaped what it is that we do. And, so I wanted to read off a couple of statistics. If we can go into that topic, are you good with that?
Oh, I am, because it's food is important, and food used to be health. And I think today food is poison.
Yes.
And the pharmaceutical companies and the tobacco companies and all those big conglomerates have really gotten a hold of the food industry and have made it just as bad as the tobacco industry.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And in fact, I've got a couple of statistics here from CDC report, Center on Disease Control. In 2023, it shows that 55% of all calories that Americans eat, Chris, come from ultra processed foods like burgers, sweet treats, savory snacks, sugary drinks, and pre-made sandwiches. And it also showed that kids from the ages of 1 to 18 get nearly 62% of their calories from these types of foods, and adults 53% of their calories come from that. So when you just look at all of those extra calories every single day that's being consumed by ultra processed foods, man, I just wanted to get your thoughts about it, because I know this is a topic that we come back to over and over, but this specifically is a real problem. So what are your thoughts about it?
I just can't help but, and I'm not trying to say factual information here, but I just can't help but wonder all these young kids that are getting cancer at a young age. For example, the colon cancer is a massive issue, right? Like, all these young kids, like, they're decreasing the age in which they are recommending colonoscopies simply because of ultra processed foods. Mm-hmm. And you look at the young kids like in their 20s and in their 30s and that are getting colon cancer and breast cancer and reproductive issues, right? And you can't help but look at this and go, these ultra processed foods have the UPFs, the forever chemicals, the endocrine disruptors, hormone, fertility, which leads to fertility problems. And I just can't help but wonder that the food is causing these problems. And it's so easy. It's so easy And it fits that age group. You said 62%, right? Between the ages of, what was it, 1 to 18, 62%
1 to 18.
is ultra. That's more than half their diet is ultra processed.
Yeah.
And it has this stuff in it. I think it's leading these kids to the emergency room. I think it's leading these kids to the oncologist. I think it's leading these kids to have depression and high suicide rates, and ultimately infertility, and all these different adverse effects are happening because of it. And I know the biggest gripe for a lot of people is well, I can't afford non-ultra processed food. And I think it's just BS. I think it's just, you don't want to make and I get it. Look, I changed my entire household 3 years ago, Len. 3 years ago when I moved to Texas, I got real serious about it. And it just was a domino effect, right? Like I got, like you need one person to follow you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I got one follower in the house with me, and that's all I needed. And then from there, it just infected the rest of the house. And then the whole overall happened. And I want to say that we're probably 10 to 15% ultra processed in my house. Maybe really 10 to 15%.
That's really good.
And most people go, oh my God, you shop at Whole Foods, whole paycheck. I said, I don't think so, man. Because I went to the regular grocery store, and the air-chilled organic chicken, non-GMO, is cheaper at Whole Foods than it is at a regular grocery store. Just get an Amazon Prime membership, and you'll save even more, right? And I'm not trying to throw stuff out there to anybody, but you just actually have to go work more, right? You just actually have to think more, and you have to. And I get it; it's so hard. It's so hard not to do ultra-processed stuff. Oh, anything is packaged. It's difficult, but I look at it this way, Len. I don't look at the extra cost of groceries. If I would probably say I spend maybe $200 more a month. And I know for a lot of people, I'm not trying to throw shade on anything or be out of touch. I understand that I understand that for a lot of people, when I say an extra $200 a month is detriment, and it could be a lot for a lot of people, I understand that, because I know I've been in positions before where, dude, a 20, like a 20 spot's a lot of money. Like, I can't spend that $20 because I got to spend it 17 different ways. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I look at it this way. If you invest in good food, you don't then have to invest in hospital bills 10, 20, 30 years from now. And that's just my take on it. Sorry, guys, but I just don't want to have to deal with, like, people are, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, oh, I'm so excited. I could get my Medicare now. And I'm like going, what are you excited about? Well, I can go to the doctor and have to pay for it. I'm like, I would not be having to go excited about going to the doctor at all. And I think it's an investment. Eating well is an investment in your future health. And that's just the way I look at it. I don't want to deal with, if I can avoid it, and food is a big deal, I'm going to avoid it. And we've talked about this as well. A lot of guys have sexual health problems. A lot of guys out there, food is your enemy. Food is your key, is your medicine for a lot of that. So, and fertility as well. So I think that, it's sad. And to break it down even more, what you said, it does taper as people get older, but there really isn't a big differentiation in wealth as well. It's like adults from households earning less than 350% of the federal poverty level consume slightly less. So it's not even really like, oh, if I make more money, everybody's affected by it.
Yeah, it's an American phenomenon. And I think there's so many layers that most people don't talk about, that it's a real problem. So I'll give you a couple of things that are going on in my mind. So when I think of the structure of the household, when you had a single income earning household that could take care of the house and the food and the expenses and utilities and still take a vacation and have a decent way of living, that's evolved and changed. And now you have a dual income earning household in places where there's two incomes, and they're still struggling to put a roof over their head, buy food, pay utilities, and take a vacation. So when you have all the grownups in the house, whether it's a single parent or a dual or two parents in the house, they're both running to work on average, and they're both spending time away from the house. And so what's happened is the food industry has made adjustments to that. And so you have all of this processed food that's available because, one, it's very simple, low preparation time, and they market that convenience. The problem that goes along with that is when you have ultra high processed foods, they're filled with simple carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are addictive. And so when you have kids whose minds are developing at an early age, and their first access and exposure to food is addictive, unhealthy foods, that becomes the foundation. So for us, we didn't give our kids any sweets for the first year. Like, you know how like they got to have a piece of cake on their first birthday. Before that, there were no processed foods. There were no sweets. They had breast milk. And once they got to about 6 or 7 months, my wife could certainly tell you better than I could. That's when we started introducing a little, harder foods and things like that, but they didn't have any sweets. And so to this day, both of my sons don't have any addictions like I do to sweets. Like I'm definitely, like even though I can control it, I definitely have an addiction to sweets. And so that's a problem. And so when you have these marketing companies that happen to sell food, they end up putting Oreos in our kids' face. Well, let me not put any specific brands out there because I do like Oreos, by the way. But, when you have all of these chips and cookies and pies and all of these cakes and all of these things that are shoved in our kids' faces, these companies are making money hand over fist, and we're having obese kids everywhere. I went to Canada, and I was looking around, and I noticed very interestingly that the Canadian population is much less obese than the American population. And so I walked up to a person. I said, how's it going? And he said, I'm doing well, eh? How are you? What do you want to talk about? And so I said, I am curious as to why there's so many so many Canadians that are fit. And he said, I go to America often and I come back and forth. And he says, one thing that I notice about your food is your portion sizes are huge. You supersize everything. You go and you get the large drinks. We're not used to that. You get the large burgers. We're not used to that. And so the size of our portions and the type of our portions are a big problem. So when you couple the structure of the household and the busyness, and then you structure the size of our food and the portions of our food and the quality of our food, we're putting our population in a position where now you've got the pharmaceutical companies and the physicians that have a nice little relationship because now they're just managing sickness. You're not managing care. They're managing sickness, and we eat ourselves to death.
And I think that's the thing they want. And that kind of goes back to the same old strategy, which is cradle to grave politics, cradle to grave consumerism. These guys are following that same playbook. These guys want to get you dead on the food, get you dead on the meds, get you dead on the healthcare, get you dead on this care. And it just becomes this cycle of just absolute nonsense. Here's the I don't want to say silver lining, or here's my point of happiness, so to speak, on this. And just seeing it with my kids. What I can tell you, and not just my kids, friends of my kids and kids in their group. And I'm talking about kids between the ages of, I'd say 10 to 18 that I've experienced. I'm very involved in seeing and talking. I like to talk to my kids' friends or people in those age groups.
You better, because the friends they keep determines how they become. That's a real thing for sure.
Exactly. Well, fortunately for me, my son's best friend, I told you, I think last week where we talked about it, my oldest son is in honors and AP classes, and his best friend is also in honors and AP classes. So I'm thankful that they're rolling that way. But my guiding or my happy point behind it is that children in that age group, from what I have seen with my own kids and kids outside of my household, is that they are recognizing. Like if you say seed oils to my kids, they're going to go, oh, no seed oils. There's no, like they know how to read labels. And then I went, maybe it's just my kids. And then when I got a chance to one of my other business partners, I was hanging around his kids. I've never hung around his kids, and they're all the same age group and the same thing. And they're talking about, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Right. So I think younger kids in the younger generation, they are starting to see that and they're seeing that. So they're using the information on the internet and social media to do good for them. And they're realizing that seed oils are bad. Low carb is better. Sugar's the enemy. You know, the things that we were lied to, Len, when we were kids, eat a lot of margarine and eat no fat and a lot of carbs and a lot of sugar and it's going to be good for you. And that's what we were told. You know, when we were kids, it was good to eat margarine and it was good to, red meat's bad for you and protein's bad for you and you don't want to eat that. It's like, and I tell somebody,
cholesterol and eggs are terrible.
all that stuff. And I look at my 6-year-old daughter just got over a UTI. It's horrible. And I went through that this whole weekend. And you know, she's feeling better because of the antibiotics. And then last night at like 10 o'clock, she comes out of her room. She's all, Dad, can you make me some black beans or a big steak? I'm like, man. Yes, right? But that's going to be grass-fed, organic, non-GMO beef. And I'm sorry for all those out there that don't eat red meat or don't understand the science behind it. There are a lot of nutrients and a lot of key acids and things that your body needs that you can't get from a lot of other things that red meat has. And I understand certain people have those things. And I'm not saying, by the way, eat red meat every day. I only eat red meat once a week. I'm a big salmon person. And I eat a lot of, you know, I eat a lot of hemp. I eat a lot of plant-based Mediterranean. But at the same time, red meat's very big. And I was like, man, you know what, Viola? I want a big filet mignon right now too, right? And I'm thinking, I want a big steak too. And I just think that it's like, look, get back to the basics on food and make food. I want to say make food great again, but make food healthy again. Like, for example, you know, if you're a spiritual person or you're a religious person, you practice religion, you know, you say that prayer, right? Let this food nourish our bodies, right? Food doesn't nourish our bodies anymore. It doesn't. It poisons. It just props us up for a second, right? Gives us that quick caloric, and then you crave it more. And you know, when you don't eat it, have you noticed it, Lynn? Because you know you don't eat a lot of. When you do eat something ultra processed, you like your brain. If you don't eat it a lot, like I don't, the second it hits your tongue, your brain lights up. You're like, wow! Like it's like literally, you feel like you're on drugs. Not to say that I've done drugs before,
right?
But. But yes, you literally feel like you're on drugs when you eat food like that, if you haven't eaten it for a while. But the more you eat it, you don't feel it.
Yeah, you become desensitized to it, just like your body becomes insulin resistant. It's the same kind of concept. And so you're right, man, that what we eat and what we feed to our kids, I think as parents, we have a responsibility to introduce the right habits. And I think there's a group of people that will watch this and say, oh, but you know, you guys are well to do and you have money for food. And like to your point, food is expensive. And so I am not here to point fingers at the person who has, you know, north of 30% of their income going on food. I get it. I've been there. Trust me. And to your point, Chris, the food you eat now, you're either going to pay for it now or you're going to pay for it later. And medical bills cost way more than highly whole, nutritious, you know, good proteins and fats and carbohydrates and vegetables and things like that. Cost much less than a heart attack, stroke, leg amputation, all of those
diabetes,
things.
Diabetes at 12 years old.
Yes, I've seen
What is going on, dude?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's huge. And so, and I guess the segue to the next segment is paying for this food that comes in from different parts of the world has to deal with tariffs. And so we've talked a little bit about tariffs before, and you know, we talked about the fact that there's a lot of changes that are taking place. And so on August 7th, 2025, the U.S. imposed these sweeping tariffs that range from about 15% to about 50% on imports from over 90 countries. And so one of those places is India, where they're doing 50% tariff on Indian goods. And because of their oil ties to Russia and things like that. So that's part of the conversation. And so markets have been responding in different ways. So like you had the NASDAQ that went up and had a nice week last week. And, you know, you've got proponents saying that it's great. You have opponents that saying it's the most terrible thing. Where do you stand right now?
Here's my biggest like this for tariffs. Okay. This is what makes me so happy. Apple just announced over 4 years, $600 billion reinvestment in the United States. Immediately $100 billion because of this. So to me, in my mind, I'm thinking one of America's crown jewels, right? I mean, this is Apple we're talking about here. Tim Cook in the White House meeting has just pledged $600 billion over 4 years to remanufacture in the United States, to create a supply chain in America. And immediately they're putting $100 billion into America right now. That to me is probably the biggest win, I think, for America, to have a company like Apple come back and say, okay, we're going to play ball here again, and let's figure out how to do this in America. And they're doing it, and they're figuring it out. That's a lot of reinvestment of capital. That's a lot of working capital to go back in the United States. The amount of jobs, the amount of infrastructure, the amount of taxes, the amount of sheer collateral effect that's going to happen as a result of that is just astounding. And I think that's a big win. And I think that's like we should be talking more about that. Now, the India thing, yes, I understand that, but job creation, look, Trump is doing the what is it? It's make it an America exemption. So, for example, he'll give you the buy or they'll reduce the tariffs or something like that if you're making it America. So, I think it's moving in the right direction. I understand there's going to be some temporary pain. There's going to be some temporary setbacks, but we have to do something because we can't. What's working before is not working. And this is the only next logical step is to create another revenue source to offset somewhere, but to force these companies to back up and reinvest and figure out, put their thinking caps on to figure out how you could do it. Because I just can't believe as an entrepreneur and any other entrepreneur in the world can sit back and say, like, no entrepreneur in the world, if you are really an entrepreneur, you'll never say there's just no way to do it. That goes against everything in an entrepreneur's language or mindset. An entrepreneur never says you can't do it. An entrepreneur says, how can I do it? And let me figure out a way, because that entrepreneur knows that if you figure out how to solve that problem, you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to make a lot of prosperity for people. So I think this is entrepreneurial spirit in work. And this is exactly what this is. And this is forcing big companies. And all we need is that domino. One big company does it, watch. I think there's going to see a lot of other companies. You're right, the market's bumped up. You're going to see a lot of companies follow suit. And I'm just excited that Apple made that move. And I think that is proof in the pudding.
So I think that, okay, when you look at tariffs as a whole, you can certainly make the argument that a tariff is a tax. And if you didn't watch the last episode, I went through that a lot. So go watch episode 3. I won't belabor that point. I do agree that one instance of a company making investments here on US soil is good, but I think that's anecdotal. And I think to use one anecdotal reference to suggest that tariffs are good is kind of like saying, hey, I did it, so everybody else should be able to do it too. Well, there are certain extenuating circumstances that make my situation different than yours. And so Apple, being a $1 trillion company and having the ability to take its resources and redistribute them sounds great. But if you think about it, if you're talking about 600 billion, 500 billion of it. They were already starting to earmark it because they saw the writing on the wall, and they were already starting to transition their work from China over to India. But they realized that there were some logistical challenges with that and all of those things. Okay. So we understand that. But for Apple to drop in the bucket now, it's a good drop in the bucket, which is cool. But the reality is that it's going to take at least 5 years, if Apple even decided to do it, to transition all of their manufacturing over to America. And again, that iPhone and those Apple products would increase by 30 to 60%, depending upon the cost for labor. So yeah, it's cool, but the only reason why Apple did it is because of the exemption. They didn't do it because of the tariff. And that's a really important distinction, is that the tariff made Tim Cook decide to have a conversation with Trump. Trump decided to create an exemption to say, okay, we're not going to charge you on this particular part of the manufacturing process because you're doing that here in America. So yes, I would be disingenuous to say that any extra manufacturing that brings jobs and all of those things are, if I were to say that they're not good, I'm not being intellectually honest. So that is a good thing. But that does not mean that tariffs, that's proof in the pudding that tariffs are a good thing, because for the average person, Apple can eat up that 500 billion and take off a sliver of the profit because they can just distribute it somewhere else. They're a behemoth like that. Most companies and most countries that are having to export goods, they won't have that same luxury. And that's really the concern that I have on the larger scale of things with this conversation.
I can see you on that. At the same time, though, I can't ignore $100 billion and a $600 billion investment. And here's the thing.
Neither can I. I agree.
This is also, I think, and here's the U.S. partnerships. The U.S. partnerships that are collaborations, which this directly affects, are Corning, which makes the glass, Global Wafers, Texas Instruments, Broadcom, Applied Materials, and a lot more. So you see these other companies that are going, oh, wait a minute, Apple's moving now. We're going to have to move.
Those companies, yes. just to be fair, those companies have a partnership with Apple, and so Apple will be working with them to do that. So they're incentivized by the exemption. They're not doing it just because they believe Made in America is better. It's because they have an exemption, so it's not going to impact their bottom line.
To me, I don't really care. To me, I just care that it's action. Whether they're doing it for the right, wrong, or right reason. Yes, are they doing it because they got an exemption? That's not the right thing, but it's effective. It's getting them to actually do it, right? It's getting them to move, right? So to me, I'm like, dude, $100 billion is $100 billion, Len. I mean, that's a lot of freaking money. $600 billion is a lot, and that's advanced R&D. What I think you're going to do here, and what I'm hoping this does, and I think this is what maybe Trump and his team is thinking, is that, okay, cool, we got one, let's get another. And it's just going to domino effect. I'm sure there's a lot of them happening. To me, I want to see that renaissance in America, and I think that you could do it. I don't think that that's not a possibility. I don't think it's not possible. I think it's possible. I think that this can happen. I think America is in such a great position in that we don't really need any other country agriculturally. We really could probably find all materials we need here. Maybe there's some rare earth minerals here and there, but we really haven't gotten a program where we actually have started investing in finding what our actual materials or our natural resources here are in America. Again, we've had so many years of administrations that have restricted, exploration, specifically in oil and gas. So I just think that if we have a company like Apple, and I know this might be a little bit of a side point, but we have a company like Apple who's currently on the ropes, right? I mean, Apple is on the ropes right now. They totally blew it with AI and the rollout of AI. They have no strong AI presence. They're getting killed by OpenAI. They're getting killed by Anthropic. They're getting killed by Meta. They're getting killed by Google. They're getting killed by everybody. Sure. Everybody's killing them, right? Mm-hmm. And they ought to be ahead of the game, right? I mean, here's one thing I can tell you. I used AI, built-in AI on an Android phone recently versus my iPhone, and it's absolutely abysmal. Like, this thing should be doing so many things for me that it doesn't do, and it's like Like, for example, this engineer is like, why can't the AI in this phone understand all the toggles? Like, I should be able to tell my iPhone I want it to do certain things, and it should do the settings for me, and it doesn't. And you can do that on other devices, right? And you can't do it, right? But what I think is going to happen here, and I could be dead wrong, but just history repeats itself a lot. Apple is always late to a show, right? They're always late to a market or emerging market. They're going to watch and they're going to see what's going to happen. And it's been very successful.
Once Steve Jobs left, yes, that's for sure.
Look, I mean, Tim Cook is a great executive.
He's a great operator. He is phenomenal.
Like if you read E-Myth, right? You understand over 1,000% growth. Like, he's in the same category as Steve Ballmer. Which, by the way, Steve Ballmer is now more wealthier than Bill Gates, and he didn't have stock options in Microsoft. Brilliant executive, right? Sure. Brilliant. You look at what I can't remember his name, it's escaping me, but you look at the current CEO of Microsoft's doing. Brilliant what they're doing right now at Microsoft. I would not count them out. I think Apple, yes, is on the ropes, but I think what this is going to allow Apple to do is, who knows if Apple pivots into a whole different industry coming back into America, and they go, here you go, guys, and they can create this completely new thing as a result of reinvesting $600 or $100 billion in American R&D work. Don't be surprised when Apple comes out with the next biggest thing because they decided to pledge back into America. I'm just saying, reciprocation is big, and I think Apple is going to do something extremely huge here just by doing that reinvestment, because they're going to find a new industry. Because what Apple does is they do that, and they're going to find a new way, and they're going to completely turn industries upside down again. Just when everybody starts to get comfortable and go, oh, we got it, because of this pledge.
Okay, so I definitely align with your thinking about Apple. Okay. When we talk about tariffs, because that's the topic of our conversation, tariffs really have more to do with other countries doing trade with America as opposed to American companies being multinational and their outsourcing of their labor and their manufacturing. So when you look at earlier, you mentioned about agriculture and different resources that we have here in America. If we only relied on American goods and services based on the amount of consumption that we currently have, the only way that we would be able to just bring back everything internally and just, using an extreme example, shutting off the world and just maximizing on the resources, we'd have to significantly decrease our lifestyle. And so, for example, right now, you can eat oranges any time of the year because there is no in season, because we import oranges from all around the world. All of our fruit comes from different parts of the world, whereas harvest in America is a different month than harvesting in Mexico and in Guatemala. If we want the best coffee in the world, it doesn't grow here in America because of the climate. We don't have places that are tropical like we do in Northern Africa, like Ethiopia and stuff like that. And so when you look at the world scene and the different products, you talked about rare earth minerals. There's no Tesla if there's no places in Africa and in South America where they import the lithium from in the different rare earth minerals. And that's one of the reasons why Trump wanted to have conversations with Zelensky, because they have a lot of rare earth minerals that the United States doesn't have in the type of quantities that fit our consumption. And in many cases,
that deal, right?
He did. And so a lot of the rare earth mineral deals is because we can take those rare earth minerals and process them and turn them into a good that we can export. And so when you talk about increasing tariffs, it really curtails the other country's ability to produce goods to bring them here, because ultimately, as I mentioned before, it's a tax that gets passed on to the consumer. And so if it costs the country so much to get their products into the United States as it is, it's going to hurt them and it's ultimately going to hurt us. So yes, a company like Apple, who has their resources in all different parts of the world, that's nothing. And it makes them look good, and it's great PR. And so they were brilliant to do that. But it's nothing when compared to what other countries are experiencing, because now, a lot of their goods and services, like Canada, is going to be hurt in a big way. And they've been really good friends of ours. They've been really good allies of ours. And I think that's going to turn sour for a while.
They've been really good allies fleeting our pocketbook.
What?
Come on, man. Look, okay, I don't want to get into Canada right now, but let me highlight this point.
Shout out to our Canadian friends
that all want to come over here and be American, right? I love Canada.
No, not really.
I love my Canadian maple syrup. I buy it. I buy the Canadian limited edition.
Not
maple
for
syrup.
long, buddy. It's going to be $25.
Hey, look. Here's what I can tell you. Look, job creation. It's going to be 20,000 more direct hires for Apple as a result. And it's going to benefit over 450,000 US-based suppliers that are going to benefit from this. So we need the behemoths to make the move, because the behemoths benefit the small guys, right? So look, Moody in India says he's not going to compromise for farmers' interests in Moody. Okay. But what about US farmers' interests? Like, okay, I love the farmers in other countries, but what about our farmers here? Because our farmers get killed by the tariffs too, trying to export. So I just think what this does is this is forcing all of these world leaders to get to the table and let's negotiate. Like, for example, you were talking about Africa and rare earth minerals. I think that opens an opportunity to have a productive capitalistic conversation with the powers that be in India, or not India, Africa, to say, hey, we need rare earth minerals. We don't want to deal with these guys over here. Let's talk business. And let's have the numbers here, because before the tariffs go up, no one wants to talk. It's just like, oh, it's America. Let them pay for everything. And that just can't happen anymore, because we're seeing the denigration. We're seeing that happen in America, where America's debt is spiraling out of control. And everybody goes, oh, America's debt's out of control. Well, because we're paying for everything.
It's not the tariffs though, because if you take a look.
No, I understand that.
We posted.
I understand that. I think the tariffs are the shock. The tariffs are the shock to get people back to the negotiation table to talk, because we need to reorganize this stuff. It's just not, the system's not working the way it was. The system benefits other people far more than it benefits people here in America. It just does. And here's the other reality behind it, because you said coffee, right? Mm-hmm. Great. Let's see how much coffee Colombia sells without Americans drinking Colombia coffee. I guarantee you a different country is going to see that and go, we'll supply America with all of our coffee beans if Colombia doesn't want to play ball with the tariffs. And I guarantee you people will drink that coffee. Because here's the thing. Good luck without the United States buying your crap, other countries. Good luck. Good luck. We'll suffer here for a little bit. We will. But historically, America finds a way. Just saying, man. I don't know. That's my crazy thought. I might be going on a limb there with something, but I don't know.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds, because, again, I'll keep saying it, the facts are just not supporting this idea that other countries are taking advantage of the United States. That's not true as it relates to goods and services in the tariff scene. Now, as it relates to defense, as it relates to military supplies and all of those, as it relates to NATO, I'd be lockstep with you in that argument. But as it relates to the goods and services, it's simply going to be a tax that is going to be imposed on the American people, and they're going to be hurting. So here's the thing. You believe one thing, I believe a completely opposite thing. Guess what? Time's going to tell, and we're going to play the receipts, and either you're going to be right and I'm going to be wrong, or vice versa. So,
hey, have you been watching some Candace Owens there? Show the receipts. You've been watching a little bit of Candace Owens. She says, show the receipts.
God bless Candace Owens. I think she's a wonderful speaker, very well spoken, expresses her ideas well, but no, we don't see eye to eye on many issues. So no, I can't say that I've listened to what she said.
There you go.
No disrespect, but just I haven't.
Well, look, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, I implore you to come back and check out some more, because look, we got a lot of great stuff coming on here, but I think we could put that stuff to bed and put a bow on that for now, and we'll see what happens with that, Len. We'll see what happens. It'd be interesting to see. I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm right. I hope you're wrong. I hope it all works out at the end of the day. But look, at the end of the day, it is an experiment, right? We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens with that. And it's going to be rough. I think the average cost that it's estimated is the average American household is going to have to shoulder an extra $2,400 or something to that effect. I think that's the temporary pain to gain some long-term prosperity again in America, specifically with bringing back that R&D and that training, right? I think we talked about this, like the amount of money that Apple spent training in China versus that amount of money that could have been spent here training here. And I think if more people saw that, they'd have a different perspective. They go, okay, cool. So outside of that, Len, I'll throw it back over to you to lead us out.
All right. So again, I hope that all of you got some value from two people that have opposing views on many topics, but also similar views on some topics. And we just think that there should be another voice here in the country that is opposing in viewpoints, but still can have a cup of coffee with each other, hang out, and still be friends after a disagreement. And so if that's you, we want you to be a part of this community. Feel free to reach out, comment, tell us what you agree with, tell us what you disagree with. And we certainly are wanting to be open. And as we grow this community, we certainly want to open it up and get to know you better. So with that being said, have a fantastic day. Like, subscribe, and till next time, take care. Bye-bye.
See you at the Olympics.
That's right.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.